Hi there, I'm Y and I'm remaking Super Mario World in the Godot engine. The good news is, I'm working on part 6. The bad news is, I'm still working on part 6. These things take time, and right now I don't have a lot of that. But I do have something to show. After part 5, I made a kind of video I'm calling Extra Bits, featuring things that didn't make it into the main video or that add on to it. Bonus content, deleted scenes, whatever you'd like to call it. I made it because I was toying around with the idea of a Patreon page or YouTube memberships or something similar. The plan is that for every video I make, there would be an extra bits, just a few minutes long, that supporters get access to. Or something like that. It's just an idea for now. Let me know if you think it's a good one or not. Anyway, that's for some time in the future, if at all. But I thought I'd post this extra bits video now as a kind of preview, and also to bridge the gap between parts 5 and 6. So that was the further ado, now here's the video. See you around! Remaking Super Mario World in Godot Part 5 Extra Bits. The in-water function. When I added the touching water tiles check, I realized that a function wasn't the best way to go after all. The in-water function needs to not only check if Mario's touching a water tile, but also if he's near the water surface, and if he's just entered the water this frame, and if he has, spawn a splash effect and set his vertical speed to 0. So it's no longer a function that checks something, it also does something now. In programming, this is what you call side effects. That means if I call the function multiple times per frame, it potentially spawns the splash effect multiple times. The way I've decided to do it is to have proper variables for being in water and being near the water surface. Then, instead of a checking function, I made an updating function that runs exactly once per frame to update those variables and handles the side effects like spawning the splash. Thanks again to Thomas for essentially guiding me through the logic related to entering and leaving the water. This update function is now basically the same thing that Super Mario World does. Nuances of the water jump. When Mario is near the surface of the water, you can press the jump button while holding up to make him jump out. But the time span where Mario is counted as near the surface is actually really short, so it's pretty hard to time your jump correctly. I was wondering why the timing was so strict in my remake, while in the original game you seem to have a lot more leeway. And it's because, unlike every other instance of jumping or swimming, I'm pretty sure, jumping out of water doesn't check for the jump button being pressed this frame, it only checks for the jump button being pressed at all. That means you don't need to initiate the jump while Mario is near the surface. Instead, when you swim up and keep holding the jump button, and that puts Mario near the surface, the jump carries over and transitions into a jump out of water without you having to press the button again. It's a simple change, but a really clever one. I can only assume the game designers had as much of an aha moment figuring this out as I did. The cape animation. In Super Mario World, there's no concept of playing an animation in the Godot sense. Instead, the game keeps track of two things: the cape's current animation frame and how long it should be shown before the game decides on the next frame. To do that, it runs this whole routine, which basically checks what Mario is doing and what frame the cape is on, and then sets the next frame and its duration. The speed of the animation depends on what Mario is doing. For example, it's faster when he's running. And when the animation changes, the game checks which frame it's on right now, and if that would make the change too abrupt, it adds in a few extra frames for a better transition. It's not too hard to untangle that code and rewrite it in Godot. The question is, should I even be writing code for that? Godot does have this animation tree node that looks like it could help. You can connect the tree to an animation player and add things like state machines or blend spaces to control which animation should play at which point. It's really powerful, but also really complex. In the end, I decided to keep my own code and not use animation trees, at least not for the cape. Like I said, Super Mario World sets the speed on the fly and changes animations based on what frame it's currently on, and that doesn't seem that easy to replicate with the built-in Godot tools. The takeoff timer. When Mario jumps with the cape and P-speed, the game starts a takeoff timer that counts down from 80. While it's running, Mario keeps rising, and when it reaches 0, the actual cape flight starts. Except no, that would be too easy. cape flight only starts when Mario starts moving down again after the takeoff timer runs out. And the timer doesn't count down to 0, it stops at 2. That way the game can distinguish takeoff ended from takeoff never started. In Godot, I have this jumping with full P meter flag, which already kind of keeps track of that. If I check if that is set, and Mario has a cape, and he's not spin jumping, that comes out to the same thing that Super Mario World checks. That this jump is a cape takeoff jump and the takeoff has ended. No need to stop the timer at 2 when it counts down. And there's another thing. During takeoff, you can let go of the jump button and quickly repress it without stopping the takeoff. That's because, just like for the slow fall, the game doesn't actually check if the button is held, it just checks if the 16-frame timer that started by pressing the button is still running. When cape flight ends. Even with all the flight logic in place, there are still some pretty important things missing that I didn't get to mention. I'm just gonna list them really quickly. When Mario hits the ground, he slides around a bit and then stops flying. When Mario hits the ground during phase 6, he causes an earthquake that kills all enemies on screen. When Mario gets hit while he's flying, he doesn't get hurt, he just stops flying and goes into spin jump mode instead. And during all of this, you need to keep holding the run button. When you let go of it, Mario immediately goes to phase 1, then stops flying and just falls down. Fixing cape flight. I had to give the main video a bit of an unsatisfying ending. Flying with the cape still felt a little bit off. I said I wasn't gonna worry about every single detail, so I was prepared to leave it like that. But there was something wrong that was more than just a detail. It seemed like after Mario got a boost, he would go back to phase 3 way sooner than he does in the original game. It made flying feel kind of brittle, I guess? I thought that would be a pain to hunt down, but it turns out, apparently, I had just missed the descending part in this table, and these comparisons should all be greater than. And just like that, flying now feels a lot closer to the original and a lot more satisfying. Whoops! The cape earthquake. But still, there was one last thing missing from cape flight. The earthquake that happens when Mario lands while in phase 6. I just hadn't gotten around to it yet. Well, I did make it print out the word earthquake, but I have to admit that doesn't have quite the same oomph. The earthquake doesn't actually do anything to Mario. He goes straight back to running. What it does do is shake the ground and kill all enemies. At least all enemies that are currently spawned and on the ground and not immune to cape earthquakes. Killing enemies was pretty straightforward, but I wasn't sure how to get the ground to shake. Sure, I could just move the tile map node a bit, but I didn't want to move the collision, just the pixels on the screen. But hey, changing pixels, that sounds like a job for a shader. Making an earthquake shader was easy enough. Just offset the vertical part of the texture and change that offset in the level script. But I wasn't sure where to put the shader. As I found out in part 4, a shader only affects the pixels that a node is drawing itself. So I can't put it on this node because only these nodes are drawing anything. But then I found out about canvas groups. A canvas group node merges all its children into a single drawing, which is exactly what I need. Apparently canvas groups use a special kind of shader, so I need some extra code when I want to write my own. But that's no big deal. And there we go. Now I'm finally happy with the cape. Took me long enough.